Well, nation, you all know me as a lover of all things prog, but surprisingly enough, I think that this next band is making their Cover Killer Nation debut. And it's actually going to be very, very difficult to imagine this. However, their last album came out before I was reviewing, so I guess it makes sense. The Theory of Everything by Ayreon. Of course, the mastermind master project of mastermind Arjun Anthony Lucassen has released their new album, and the official Arion storyline has concluded, so now this is an album that's going to have a little bit of a different take to it, a little bit more of a personal take. There was citation that a couple of the films that were used as reference for this idea that this album were Rain Man and A Beautiful Mind, and if you've seen either of those films, you kind of know what this is about. These are about prodigies, geniuses, individuals that have some idiosyncrasies to them and are basically questing for the truth and are just absolutely brilliant. Now, this is an album that whenever you take a look at it will probably appear as 4 very, very long tracks, which is exactly what they're basically meant to be. 4 long movements of music over the course of 2 discs, each of the movements lasting longer than 20 minutes. But whenever you break everything down, whenever you get through the separations, so to speak, something that is very common in progressive music, you'll notice that there is 42 tracks exactly, which of course, from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is the answer to life, the universe, and everything. So, there you go. Wow. 42 tracks on an album, that's definitely a lot, and, well, we're used to Arion having either a lot of tracks on an album, either that or having very few tracks that have very, very long run times, and just having epic storylines that have all sorts of different things going on. So let's kind of get into it. This one's actually one that does not really require a lot of dissection as far as the storyline is concerned. In fact, I'm going to do this as minutely as possible, that way I don't spoil a lot of the album itself. What we have here is we have a prodigy who is working very, very hard on trying to develop a breakthrough and an answer for a lot of things, and he's very lost within himself. He's somebody that's not necessarily going to be able to do it all on his own. There's a lot of cloudness to his visions and to his thoughts, and it's really a question of focus. And because of this, they use a drug in order to try to aid his focus. However, there are side effects. There's a rival that he is working against in order to try to solve this problem, and eventually they end up working together, find the breakthrough, and basically solve the theory of everything, which is just kind of an interesting idea in general. So that's very, very brief. Now, I'm really leaving a lot out. There's a lot of different things that are mentioned in the album that you really are going to have to interpret and listen to for yourself. No track on this album exceeds the 4-minute mark, so none of the small little snippets will exceed that mark, so you're going to have about 10 tracks per on the 4-song cycle here, with, I believe, one of them having 11, or perhaps one of them having 12. I think part 2 does. So this album, it features, like all Arion albums, a treasure trove of different guests, including the lead singers from Grand Magus. We have Christina Scapia from Lacuna Coil. We have Tommy from Camelot on here. We also have guest instrumentalists from Jordan Rudess. We have guys from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, from Yes. We have guest vocals also from Marco from Nightwish. There's just a treasure trove of different vocalists and performers that came in to help out on here. May not seem like such a star-studded lineup as an album such as The Human Equation, which had Michael Ackerfeet, James LeBray, and a lot of other different names. Might not be like their previous album, which was a binary code for Y, should I say, which included the lead singer from Evergrey. It's not like Flight of the Migrator or any of the albums like that, which included names such as Bruce Dickinson. However, these are still names that are extremely relevant in heavy metal music today, and it's definitely an all-star cast by its own right. Now, the first thing I'm going to say about this album is that, like all Arion albums, the instrumentalization, the composition, and everything like that is done very, very well. It's done in the form of a metal opera, which is something that is no surprise to Arion fans. In fact, it's something that's gone on ever since the middle part of the 1990s, whenever he first introduced the Arion cycle of albums, which was a very lengthy album cycle. However, it was one that was really very well done, considering it wasn't unlike the Afterman or the The Amory Wars saga from Coheed and Cambria, this is one that had deviations. This is one that had a lot of different span as far as time, space, and different ideologies were concerned. There was the human equation, which was done principally within one of the characters' minds, and then was tied together only at the end. So this being independent from that means that it's kind of a fish out of water type idea. This is something brand new. There's no link whatsoever. So this is one that is fully independent, which is, it's bold new ground. It's also something that's a little bit fearful, which means that there's going to be a little bit of, I guess, some baby steps that'll be made, as well as some stumblings that will occur. The principal stumbling that I will have on this album, considering the vocals are done masterfully well, the overall flow of the album is good, and of course the instrumentalization and the overall composition is very well founded, is just that this album does get a tad on the tedious side. I'm not sure necessarily this is because of the separation of the tracks or how the story really kind of moves forward. Maybe it's just one that for a lot of people may not have a lot of either relevance or interest. It doesn't really have a storyline that is really maybe suited for something of this knowledge. This is very deeply rooted in a lot of drama and a lot of, internal, ideas or thoughts of a genius. Whenever you think of films such as A Beautiful Mind and Rain Man, there's a lot of internal conflict. There's a lot of external conflict also with the morality of using such drugs that will perhaps enhance the mind with side effects and everything like that. But I think that once you get toward disc 2 and once you kind of try to get your way to the end of the story, it starts to get a little bit tedious, and it's almost like the division of these tracks in the 42 individual divisions almost hurt it instead of helped it. Almost like it would have worked a little bit better had it just been the 4 very, very lengthy tracks. It may have been a little bit more difficult to follow. It may have had a little bit more in the way of problems that way. There may have just been no real, great way to do this. Is maybe what I'm getting at here. However, there's just something on here that feels as though at times this album just kind of comes to a screeching halt. Not that it completely stops, just that there is a lot of, there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of drag. It's just not something that maintains itself very well throughout the entirety of the course. Now, yes, everything has a place in the story, and there is a lot of deep relationship involvement between the mother and the prodigy, which is Christina Scabbia's relationship with Tommy from Camelot, with the rival, which is Margot from Nightwish, with the teacher, which is the lead singer of Grand Magus. There's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of different interactions, which all play a key part in the overall opera. You can't have it all just be the focal point of the storyline of one individual and kind of their quest throughout this whole entire course. That's not the way that these albums have worked from the start, so this is not unfamiliar ground. However, at the same time, it just seems as though there's a little bit more of a bogging down process. Maybe this is something that based around a genius working on trying to solve a theory, just doesn't have that much excitement, that much interest, that much in the way of a followable storyline. Maybe it just doesn't seem to have that same degree of relevance. This is almost like something that is better suited truthfully for the stage. Almost like you need to see the vision that you kind of get through this music in your mind in front of you in order for this to really have that magical aha moment, in order for you to really feel completely and totally one with the entire composition. This is definitely a bold statement. However, at the same time, I do believe it's one that has a certain degree of truth to it. Like I said, overall, the musical composition and everything around that is done very well. And that's not something that's all that surprising, and that's the thing. There's no real surprise with Ayreon albums. We know that they're going to be constructed very well. We know that the composition will be solid, and we know that the treasure trove of guest performers that he is able to get on board for these projects are all going to deliver their A game. So this is not any one person really slacking. I think this is just one that's a little bit better and more adaptable for, say, the theater or for a movie or something like that, as opposed to being a concept-based album. So maybe this is something where they need to think about a little bit of theater for this. Maybe they think of Broadway. This may be perfectly adaptable for that, because whenever I see the breakthrough, which is on the second disc of the album, I can see 2 people frantically working on trying to solve this equation, maybe having some lighting effects really showcase the fact that they've worked into the night and into the next day, perhaps working overtime, and then finally getting to that aha moment, and there being that elation, that joy, that that feeling of completion, which is something that I think is just better represented in the screen, or on the theater, or on the screen, with the emotions being very visible to a listener or a watcher in this case. So overall, I love the idea of just the execution. It's very, very difficult to execute something like this, so like I said, this was a bold risk, a bold statement, definitely, but I'm going to have to give this a 7.5 out of 10. Like I said, really like the overall composition. I just think that it kind of comes to a halt a little bit too often, and it's not one that is as instantly rememberable. It's not even a word. You don't instantly remember this album as well as you do some of his previous works. What did you guys think of the album? Did you guys listen to The Theory of Everything? Tell me in the comments what you thought about it. Tell me in the comments what you think about science, what you think about the Big Bang Theory, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, string theory, all of the different things that were mentioned on this album. And one final thing, who would you love to see on an Arion album, whether it be a vocalist or a performer? Let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll see if we can construct a dream lineup for the next Ayreon release. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.